You know what the most exhausting part of being overweight actually is? It's not the extra pounds. It's the cycle. The guilt after eating. The motivation that lasts exactly 3 days. The hope every Monday morning that this time it'll be different, and then it isn't. What if the reason that cycle never breaks has nothing to do with your willpower and everything to do with how your metabolism actually works? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's been keeping you stuck, and you'll have a simple, concrete plan that many people say rewired their hunger within 2 weeks. Let's start with something most people get completely wrong. You've probably been told that eating breakfast is non-negotiable. That skipping it slows your metabolism and leads to overeating later. Here's what research actually suggests. For most people dealing with stubborn fat and chronic cravings, breakfast may be the first thing worth reconsidering. Not forever. Just long enough to shift your body into a completely different metabolic state. That state is called ketosis. And it's simpler than it sounds. Your body runs on 2 main fuel sources, glucose, which comes from carbohydrates, and fat. When glucose is available, your body uses it first. That's just how it's designed. But when glucose isn't flowing in constantly, your body switches to burning fat instead. And it gets very good at it very quickly. What's interesting is that your brain doesn't need glucose to function. It can run just as well. Many people say even better, on ketone bodies, which your liver produces from fat. So the idea that you need carbohydrates to think clearly or function well is something the science increasingly challenges. The second piece is intermittent fasting. And I want to be clear, this isn't about starving yourself. It's about narrowing your eating window. Bay! Instead of grazing from morning to night, you eat within a defined period, say noon to 8 in the evening. Outside that window, nothing but water, black coffee, tea, or a little lemon water. That's it. What this does is give your hormones time to reset. Insulin levels drop. Growth hormone rises. Your body stops storing and starts releasing. Many people find that the cravings that used to feel uncontrollable just quiet down. Not because they're fighting harder, because the hormonal environment that was creating them has changed. Now here's where these two approaches get powerful together. When you combine a shortened eating window with low-carbohydrate meals, you accelerate the shift into fat burning significantly. Insulin, the hormone that essentially tells your body to store fat, may drop by a substantial margin according to some research. And that chronic elevated insulin that many overweight people carry is one of the main reasons fat loss stalls. It's not about calories in and calories out in some simple mathematical sense. It's about whether your hormonal environment is set up for storing or releasing. The plan itself is straightforward. In the morning, nothing. That sounds harsh, but most people who try this report something surprising. The morning hunger that felt urgent actually passes. By around 9 or 10, it often just disappears. This is because hunger is largely hormonal, not purely physical. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, rises and falls in patterns. It doesn't just keep climbing. When you push through that first wave, you often find yourself genuinely not hungry an hour later. A black coffee or tea helps. Some people add a small amount of butter or coconut oil to their coffee. It provides fat-based energy without triggering an insulin response, which would pull you out of fat-burning mode. Your first meal comes around noon or 1 in the afternoon. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake. They undereat out of habit or guilt, then crash and binge later. Don't do that. Eat a real, satisfying meal. Eggs are an excellent anchor for this meal, 5 to 7 of them, depending on your appetite and size. Add an avocado, a spoonful of almond butter or natural peanut butter. These are foods that are rich in fat and protein, virtually zero in carbohydrates, and genuinely filling. The fat provides sustained energy. You're not likely to feel that 2-hour energy crash that most people associate with lunchtime. The reason most office workers feel completely useless by 2 in the afternoon isn't a personal failing. It's a direct consequence of the breakfast they had at 7, the oats, the toast, the fruit juice. Blood sugar spikes, then crashes. Insulin surges, then leaves you flat. When you're running on fat instead, the energy is different. Steadier. Less dramatic. Many people report that their mental clarity actually improves after the first few days of adaptation. Those first few days, let's be honest about them. The transition isn't always comfortable. You might feel foggy, a little irritable, low energy. This is sometimes called the keto adaptation phase, and it's temporary. It happens because your body is switching fuel systems. The good news is that it typically passes within 3 to 5 days. After that, most people describe feeling noticeably better than they did before, not just neutral, but genuinely different. Lighter. Clearer. Less driven by constant hunger. One practical tip for that transition: electrolytes matter more than most people realize. When you reduce carbohydrates, your body retains less water, which sounds good, and in terms of inflammation, it often is. But it also means you're excreting more sodium, potassium, and magnesium. If you feel headaches, muscle cramps, or unusual fatigue in the first week, this is likely why. Adding a pinch of high-quality sea salt to your water, one that contains a broader mineral profile, can make a significant difference. Magnesium supplementation is also worth considering, particularly for sleep and muscle function. Your evening meal comes later, anywhere from 6 to 8 in the evening, depending on your schedule. This is your second and final meal of the day. And again, it should be satisfying. Not a sad salad. The real meal. Woo! Salmon with asparagus. A grass-fed steak. Ground beef made into patties. Olives, cheese, a good quality charcuterie spread. There are hundreds of recipes that fit this framework and taste genuinely good. The point isn't deprivation. The point is choosing foods that don't spike insulin, keep you full for hours, and allow your body to continue doing what you've set it up to do. Here's the thing about cravings that most diet advice misses. They're not a willpower problem. They're a metabolic problem. When your blood sugar is constantly fluctuating up, down, your body sends urgent hunger signals that feel impossible to override. That evening where you sit down with every intention of eating nothing and somehow end up eating everything in sight. That's not weakness. That's an insulin roller coaster playing out exactly as biology predicts it will. When you stabilize that, the cravings genuinely change. Not suppressed. Actually gone, or at least manageable. Now, a word on exercise. Many people assume that to lose fat, they need to be doing intense workouts. The recommendation here is simple: walk. 10,000 steps a day if you can manage it. That alone, combined with a dietary shift, is often enough to produce significant changes. Once your hunger is under control and you've been in this pattern for a few weeks, adding strength training becomes much easier and more effective. But in the beginning, walking beats running. What about supplements? 2 are worth highlighting. Vitamin D, which many people are deficient in, particularly in northern climates or during winter months, plays a role in metabolic function and fat metabolism according to research. And magnesium, which we already mentioned, supports hundreds of enzymatic processes in the body, including those related to blood sugar regulation and sleep quality. These aren't magic pills. But in the context of this approach, they support what you're already doing. Let's come back to where we started. The cycle of trying, failing, feeling guilty, trying again. That cycle tends to persist, not because people lack determination, but because they're working against their own biology. The standard advice, eat less, move more, willpower through the hunger, often doesn't account for the underlying hormonal reality that makes fat loss hard in the first place. This approach works differently. It's not fighting your biology. It's working with it. Within the first 2 weeks, if you follow this honestly, most people notice that the evening hunger they used to experience is simply not there anymore. That the food noise, the constant background thinking about food, goes quiet. That's the signal that something has shifted. Not willpower. Egoism. Your concrete next step for tomorrow: skip breakfast. Have water, coffee, or tea in the morning. Make your first real meal around noon. 5 or 6 eggs with avocado and something fatty alongside. Notice how you feel by 3 in the afternoon compared to your usual day. That's it. One day. See what you observe. Which part of this do you recognize in your own life? The afternoon crash, the evening cravings, or the constant cycle of starting over? Drop it in the comments. I read them, and it helps me understand what to cover next. Next video, I'm going to break down exactly what inflammation does to your metabolism and why it may be the hidden factor making everything harder. Stick around for that one. It connects directly to what we talked about today. If this way of looking at things makes sense to you, subscribing means you'll get that video and everything else without having to go looking for it. That's the actual reason to subscribe, not as a favor to me, but because the next one is worth seeing. This content is based on research and personal exploration of these topics. It's not a substitute for medical advice, and individual results vary. If you have existing health conditions, check with a doctor before making significant dietary changes.